to you, Alex.
Yes, Brian, the intriguing dumbed-down style is interesting. This is one of those social media posts written by professionals for professionals, so it's not as gutter-like as Twitter and Facebook, particularly not Facebook. But this is the LinkedIn version, and it's rather interesting how this has been done by a Dutchman. So what goes with that LinkedIn share? Bring it up now. You will see that it's written by Marijn Marcus, who is a data scientist and specializing in AI. He's reporting. I have to say, I deplore the use of the infantile clapping hands and other emojis, but he is writing in a well managed style, at least. He's announcing the news that Rheinmetall, the German defense conglomerate, have bought 50 Leopard 1 tanks for Ukraine. But all is not as it seems, Brian. But first of all, it's the author's own country that was the Netherlands that was rumoured to be the buyer, hence why he pricked up his ears. He found out that it's actually a Belgian stockpile that Rheinmetall bought from. The Netherlands had intended to buy Leopard 1 tanks from Switzerland. Are you following the carousel here, Brian?
Yes,
however,
absolutely.
The Swiss government said 9 because they're still on paper neutral. So now, thanks to budget allocations, we know that the Dutch government intends to have bought those Leopards instead. Whoever it is, Ukraine has a secret Santa, and it turned out to be one of Europe's biggest arms companies, Rheinmetall. If you go on to the next slide, you will see that Rheinmetall bought these tanks a decade ago as clapped-out old bangers from the Belgian military. And last June, a source from the Dutch Parliament told the Dutch public broadcaster NOS that the Dutch government plans to buy several dozen new Leopard 1 tanks for the Ukrainian army. Now, via The Guardian, this has reached the German public broadcasters again. So the next slide is ARD Tagesschau, reporting that Rheinmetall is working up, in their euphemism, aufbereitet, further Leopard tanks. But if you tap this again, you will see a somewhat sad admission that although, according to the Guardian source, 49 tanks had been sold to a not yet named European country, we now know more detail thanks to the LinkedIn post. In practice, actually, when they've cannibalized, only 30 of the 50 tanks will be good for battle. They're not ready yet. I don't know what your thoughts are, Brian, on this rather interesting merry-go-round of Ukrainian armaments.
Well, it is an interesting merry-go-round. My firm opinion is when they get sent to Ukraine, the Russians will destroy them, as it's destroying all of the other armor that's been sent. But what are we really seeing? That we live in a Western democracy which is really built on an arms trade. And what's ensuing here? More death and destruction.
And the Russian Defense Minister, Sergei Shoigu, is warning that destruction is spiraling ever more internationally. Gilbert Doktorov, on a very interesting Substack blog generally, has come up trumps here. He's talking about the threat that Russia sees posed by Finland's membership of NATO and Poland's military buildup. Finland and Poland were both Tsarist provinces until 1917. So this is something that people should note historically. This is the direct verbatim quote from what Shoigu has said, translated obviously, that Finland's entry into NATO is a serious destabilizing factor, as is Sweden's prospective entry. Of course, now Hungary and Turkey have removed their veto on that. On Finnish territory, which is a great long border that Russia finds hard to defend, by the way, because it's right up north, with a single road going up to the nuclear bases at the top, Murmansk in the Kola Peninsula. Shoigu says there, NATO may place contingents which are capable of destroying critically important infrastructure in Russia's northwest, even the nuclear bases, the nuclear subbases at Severodvinsk, the strategic air bases in Kola, no small fry. Shoigu says that right around Russia and Belarus, NATO has 360,000 NATO men-at-arms, 8,000 tanks. I don't know whether NATO has that many, but he says they do. And tanks and other armored vehicles, and 650 airplanes and helicopters. Shoigu's warning has also made it to TASS, the Russian press agency, which states that Poland, in Shoigu's view, has become the main tool of America's anti-Russian policy. This goes back hundreds of years. Every century since about 1600, Poland has been rightly or wrongly perceived by the Russians at some point as being itching to invade. So let's see what the right-hand side of that slide reveals. Shoigu, we won't read this in full, but Shoigu says that Poland is now America's main anti-Russian policy tool. And he says Russia's now being worried that Poland's being so thoroughly militarized that it will be America's main vector into Russia. Now, it's not all one-way traffic. The Poles are concerned that the irregulars who have received much attention, Wagner Private Military Corporation, may have been mounting incursions quick cross-border smash and grab raids into eastern Poland from Belarusian territory, and Belarus has Russian nukes on it now as well. Associated Press for the West notes the same. Poland plans to deploy 10,000 men to its border with Belarus. Defense Minister Mariusz Blaszczak says these men would be deployed at some unspecified future time. He says that this is on top of 2,000 troops being sent to the border immediately, which doubles the military presence there. There's all kinds of things going on the Polish-Belarusian border, including the long-term and scandalous treatment of migrants on the border, with both sides accusing each other of human rights abuses. Just at the end of this, and I don't have significant new developments here, but I do want to report it, the Armenian exclave, ethnic Armenian that is, in the territory of Azerbaijan, known as Nagorno-Karabakh, or to Armenians as Artsakh, has been blockaded for 7 months now by Azerbaijan, an immediate ally of NATO through Turkey and Pakistan connections. And late last month, massive rallies were organized. People are going short of food in Stepanakert, the capital of that enclave, which is de facto Armenian ethnically, but de jure Azerbaijani. There was a last war in September 2020. It's a humanitarian crisis. And so on the next slide, the Armenian National Committee of the UK recommends that you take action by writing to your MP. We don't always like these template forms of writing to your MP. An individual communication does far better. But do please seize yourself of the developments going on in this obscure place, Nagorno-Karabakh, and tell your parliamentarians what you think, because this is entirely within NATO's, at least diplomatic pressure, capability to resolve.
I think we could resolve a lot of things if the mind was towards peace instead of war, Alex, but unfortunately it's not.